Shalom. Welcome to the Philadelphia Assemblies. Today is the 22nd day of the 11th month of the year 5779, close as we can discern it. And again, if you're dating that and you don't quite get, maybe we're off 15 days from where you are, it's because we keep the full moon as the new moon. Full moon, according to Psalm 81, verse 3. So we believe it says that the full moon is the new moon. So that's why the difference in maybe the way you're keeping date. Today also is the first day of February 2020. So started a new decade already on the Gregorian or man's calendar, but we're looking to start a new decade in Yahuwah's calendar starting in like April. Okay, so we're looking forward to the new decade. Okay, that's coming up. Man's time always starts earlier than them in the middle of the winter instead of in spring like the month of Abib. Okay, we're going to do all of the book of Ruth today as an expository teaching. It's a short book, so we're going to keep it together in context, and we're going to see some different things in here. We're going to look at how Israel treated marriages when, someone died in the family. We see that in the New Testament several times when, one place in Matthew there, and can't recall exactly what chapter and verse it is, but they were, the Sadducees were basically mocking the Messiah and asking him, if the husband passed away and he didn't have any children, and then it went all the way through succession of all his brothers and nobody had children. Nobody was able to have children, then who would carry this namesake, or whose wife would she be? I'm sorry, that was the question in the kingdom. And the Messiah replied that they erred. Not only did they greatly erred, because we would be like the Malach in Hebrew, or the messengers, that are in heaven. We are in the Shamayim. We would be like them. Okay, so that would be neither male nor female. And so this subject gets broached quite a bit here, but we can see how in this book how Israel handled it if there wasn't an immediate person of kin, how that would be handled. And the important part of that is, so that I kind of touch on that before we get started, is this is kind of we know this is the direct lineage of our Messiah, and we also know that this is a Gentile that's in the direct lineage of our Messiah. And knowing that, we also know that this person is kind of a shadow of the Messiah as being Boaz, and Ruth being the body of the Messiah. The bringing together of both Gentile and natural seed into one body. Okay, and this all shadows that. If you pay attention, you know that. In John chapter 1, verse 27, our Messiah, John the Baptist, or Johann the Immerser, said that, he wasn't worthy to loosen the shoe of our Messiah. And that means he wasn't worthy to, be the husband of the bride. Okay, that's what this was talking about. This all shadows and type. And you'll see that as we go through it. I'm going to probably touch on it a little bit, but I just wanted to point those things out before, because I think a lot of people miss this in the teaching. They get it pretty literally and straightforward, and they don't get any of the type and shadow and type in it. Okay, the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled, so we know that the book of Ruth was written during the time, or happened during the time of the judges or the deliverers. Okay, that there was a famine in the land. So they're dating it. There was a famine going on. And certain men of Bethlehem, Judah, or Yehuda, Bethlehem, Yehuda. Now, the city of Bethlehem in the land of Yehuda went to sojourn in the country of Moab. Okay, so we know that a certain man of that was from the place Bethlehem in the land of Yehuda went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. So we got the story straight. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons were Mahalan and Chihasan. And I'm pronouncing that completely wrong, but I'm really not that good at some of these. And they were what? Ephraimites, which is equal to Ephraimites. They were of the tribe of Ephraim. So notice here it said this was a man from Bethlehem, Yehuda, okay? And he went to stay in the land of Moab, and the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. Okay, we got that. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab, the sons. Okay, those 2 sons of Elimelech took wives from the people of the Moabites. The name of the one was Orpha, and the name of the other was Ruth. Okay, so we get introduced to Ruth here. And they dwelled there about 10 years in the land of Moab. They dwelled there about 10 years. Okay, verse 5. And Mahalan and Chilon, and I don't know if I got that right or not, died also, both of them. So we're setting up a scenario here where all the sons have died, so there's no one left to marry Ruth. And the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose, or she lost her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab back to Bethlehem, Yehuda. For she had heard in the country of Moab how that Yahuwah had visited his people in giving them bread. So she had heard that back in Bethlehem, Yehuda, there was food, because it was in the time of a dearth. Verse 7, therefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return into the land of Yehuda. And Naomi said unto her daughters-in-law, go, and once she got there, she said, you need to, after I guess the dearth was over, she says, return each to her mother's house. Okay, in other words, go back to her family. Yahuwah deal kindly with you as you have dealt with her sons, okay, with the dead, and with me. And Yahuwah grant you that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. They cried because they weren't anxious to leave Naomi. They had grown to love her. And they said unto her, surely we will return with you unto your people. So they said, no, we'll go with you. And Naomi said, turn, go, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Because of the tradition in Israel. Okay, and it's even, setting a law that, that they are to marry their brother's wife, if they had no children, okay, so that their name wouldn't perish out of Israel. But there's a lot of it that's not covered as far as what happens if the brothers have passed away. How would they handle that? Well, Israel had developed traditions that were not against the Torah about what happens if all the brothers had died, and we're going to see that in this book, in the book of Ruth. Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have no husband also tonight, and should also bear sons. So she's saying, I'm far too old to produce a child, and it'd be too long for you to wait if I did. Would you wait for them till they were grown? It don't make much sense that they would. Would you stay for them from, in other words, would you keep yourself from them from having husbands? No, my daughters, for it grieves me much for your sakes that the hand of Yahuwah is gone out against me. So she felt like because her husband and her two sons had both died, that the hand of Yahuwah was against her. And that's not true at all, when actually he was still working through this family to produce offspring that would also produce our Messiah. And they lifted up their voice and cried or wept, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth hung on to her. She was not going to leave, and it was obvious. And she said, behold, your sister-in-law. In other words, Naomi told her, look at your sister-in-law, is gone back unto her people and unto her Elohim. Okay, this word God's here is Elohim. So obviously Israel didn't really frown on them other nations going after their Elohim. And even Yahuwah was probably winking at them while they were doing that, because they weren't Israel. They weren't the seed of Abraham, okay, in a physical sense. But anybody that decided to cling on to the true Elohim was welcome to do that, and they would be grafted in and become part of the Commonwealth of Israel even now, and as far back as there is in Israel, that's been the case. Okay, but it was okay. He said her sister-in-law had returned not only to her people but unto her Elohim. Return you after your sister-in-law. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you stay or lodge, I will stay or lodge, and your people shall be my people, and your Elohim shall be my Elohim. And Elohim again being a plural word, so recognizing the Father and the Ruach HaKodesh. That's why when it says Elohim, that's the sense of that. When it says Elohah, that's singular, and most of the time employing Yahuwah or the Most High. Okay? Verse 17. Where you die, will I die, and there will I be buried. Yahuwah do so to me. So she's praying to Yahuwah here to me, and more also, if anything but death part you from me. Verse 18. When she saw that she, being Ruth, was Naomi, she saw that she, Ruth, was very serious or steadfastly minded to go with her, then she stopped speaking unto her. In other words, she quit trying to convince her to go back. She knew there was no use. Verse 18. Okay, verse 19. So they too went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass when they were come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved about them. And they said, is this Naomi? In other words, they saw her and they remembered her, they recognized her. And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara. Okay, for the Almighty, or El Shaddai, hath dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and Yahuwah hath brought me home again empty. Why then call me Naomi, seeing that Yahuwah hath witnessed against me, and again El Shaddai, or the Almighty, hath afflicted me. 22. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem to begin the barley harvest. Okay, so we know that this barley harvest would have been after what was known as the wave sheaf, or the day of first fruits. Okay, and they were picking the barley. Okay, they were harvesting the barley crop. So it's somewhere close to the Passover in this area. Okay, so fairly probably just after. Okay, so there we know the time by knowing the harvest here. Chapter 2. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. Okay. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean ears of grain, says corn in your King James. We know there was no maize or corn. It was talking about the barley. Okay, after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned or gathered in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light, she just happened to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was a near kinsman, okay, of Elimelech. Okay, verse 4. And beheld, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, Yahuwah be with you. And they answered him, Yahuwah bless you. Then said Boaz unto his servants that was set over the reapers, or the gleaners, who is this young woman? Verse 6, and the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitish young woman that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. So he knows without a doubt that she's of the Moabites. And she said, I pray you, or beg you, let me glean and gather after the reapers. And we know that was a law in Israel, that they would get to glean the edges of the field, okay? And that's what she was asking to do. And she said, I beg you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. So she hung around a little bit in the house. Verse 8, then said Boaz unto Ruth, hearest not my daughter? He says, do you not hear? Go not to glean in another field. He said, you're welcome to stay in my fields. Neither go from here, but stay here fast, or stay here close by my maidens. In other words, he let her gather close to his maidens. Then verse 9, he says, let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go you after them. Have I not charged or ordered the young men that they shall not touch you? And when you are thirsty, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Verse 10, then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in your eyes, that you should take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? And this stranger he's talking about is a Gentile, one of another nation, okay, namely the Moabites. Verse 11, and Boaz answered and said unto her. Now we know who the Moabites were. One of Moshe's wives, or Moses' wife, was a Moabitess. We understand all that, okay? And there's been, we see back in Exodus that we have priests from the Moabites, and they weren't priests to some other god, they were priests to this God at the time, because they were at the foot of Mount Sinai, where Moshe went up to good. So, there's some gray areas and things that a lot of people aren't seeing, because they're seeing things the way they want to, okay? And so anyway, and verse 11, and Boaz answered and said unto her, it hath fully been showed me all that you have done unto your mother. In other words, he had been told how she had done with her mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother and the land of your nativity, or her birth, and are come unto a people which you knew not knew not before. So you had chosen to cling unto Israel through your mother-in-law.
Amen.
Verse 12, and Yahuwah recompense, or Yahuwah reward your work, and a full reward will be given you of Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, under whose wing you are come to trust. Because he also had heard that she said, my Elohim is your Elohim. So obviously she had made proclamation unto Yahuwah, and they had heard about it. Verse 13, then she said, let me find favor in your sight, my master. This word Lord here is obviously not the tetragrammaton, the 4 letters. For that you has comforted me, and for that you has spoken friendly unto your handmaiden, though I be not like unto one of your handmaidens. And Boaz said unto her, at mealtime come you here, and eat of the bread, and dip your morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached, or held out her dried corn. That's what parched corn is dried grain or dried barley. And she did eat, and was satisfied, and then left. And when she was risen up to glean, and when she got back to the field to glean, to pick up the edges of the field, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves. In other words, not just the edges of the field, but even of the gleaning, so of the main sheaves. So it's symbolic here, that showing that she was to take part of the sheaves, in other words, of the harvest. Okay, and this is all pointing together, talking about the body of Messiah, and how the 2 walls of partition be broke down, and all these different things. And this is all part of choosing to follow Yahuwah. This is real. This happened historically, but it's also pointing towards the grafting in of the Gentiles into Israel, that we look at in Ezekiel chapter 37. Okay, and you have to read the entire chapter to get that, not just pick out certain things to get it the way you want to get it. Okay, so it's talking about, again, the fulfilling of the promises, which does not fully happen until the millennium, but it's happening now as we speak, as people are choosing Yahuwah and his ways. Okay, just as Ruth does here. And verse 16, and let fall also some of the handfuls. Okay, which the handfuls in this case would be like sheaves. Again, this is talking about the main part of the harvest. Okay, of purpose for her. In other words, let her have some of the main harvest, and leave them that she may glean them, or pick them up, and rebuke her not for doing that. So she gleaned, or gathered, in the field until the even, or until the sun was going down, and beat out that she had gleaned or gathered, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned or gathered, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was satisfied or full. So she brought food back to her mother-in-law. And her mother-in-law said unto her, where hast you gleaned today, or gathered? Where did you go to gather today? And where did you work? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of you. And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, the man's name with whom I worked today is Boaz. Okay, well, obviously Naomi knows who Boaz is right off the bat. Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of Yahuwah. In other words, then she's talking about Boaz. He's of Yahuwah, and she knew who he was, who hath not left off his kindness, capital H, and his kindness here is talking about Yahuwah's kindness to the living and unto the dead. Okay, because we obviously know Naomi and Ruth are the living, and the dead would be his near kinsmen. Okay, and Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. Okay, so here we're looking at a brother or very close kinsman to Naomi's husband. Okay, and Ruth the Moabitess said, he said unto me also, you shall keep fast, or you shall stay close by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his maidens, that they meet you not in any other field. So she kept close by the maidens of Boaz to gather until the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest. See, there's two harvests going on here, and both these harvests will be done when the day of Pentecost has fully come. Okay? And dwelt with her mother-in-law, so that we know exactly where the time periods and what's going on here. And a lot of people don't understand that the wave sheaf harvest is the beginning of the Feast of Weeks. Okay, it's not just one day at the beginning and one day at the end. It's the entire period that's known as the Feast of Weeks. The last day is a high day, and the first day, I believe, is a high day as well, as some others do, and a lot don't believe that the wave sheaf or the day of first fruits is a high day. Okay, I think there's plenty of evidence both in the Old and New Testament to support that. Just because in Leviticus 23 it doesn't say even this, it does say at the beginning, even these are my Sabbaths. So that covers everything that's listed in there. And obviously they were gathering on the wave sheaf for the day of first fruits because they were offering the first of the first fruits on that day. And then at the end of that, they would offer the culmination of that, which would be 2 wave loaves that would be with leaven, okay, that I believe represents the 2 churches, okay, that's in Revelation. Okay, so those 2 churches will contain both Gentile and natural seed, okay, that'll be joined together in Ezekiel chapter 37, okay, which is in the millennial reign. Right. So a lot going on here. I'm not going to connect all the scripture today, but you'll see it as we go, and if you study it out for yourself, you'll see where I'm going with that. So that day, the day of Pentecost, represents the culmination, and it also points to the wedding supper of the Lamb, when all those come together, just as this book is a shadow of all that. Okay. Now let's see, where did I leave off? I'm getting ready to go to verse 24. Or actually, chapter 3. That was the end of the chapter. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, my daughter, shall I not rest for you? Seek rest for you? Shall I not look for a resting place for you, that it may be well with you? And now is not Boaz our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast, or that she had gathered with? Behold, he winnoweth barley, or cuts barley tonight in the threshing floor. It's not, they're threshing barley, winnowing. So they're beating out the barley. So when she's talking about seeking rest with her, she's talking about a place for her where she's going to pick up a husband, actually. That's the rest she's speaking of. And she's saying that he's our near kinsman. So this is all part of the tradition of marrying inside of there when they didn't have children, to make sure that this one's name doesn't perish out of Israel. Okay? So, and now is not, okay, verse 3, wash yourself. She's saying, therefore, take a bath, wash yourself, and anoint yourself. So in other words, make yourself smell good. And put on put clean clothing upon you, and get you down to the floor. But make not yourself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. So in other words, don't confront him until after he finishes for the evening. Verse 4, and it shall be when he lies down that you shall notice the place, or go to the place where he shall lie, and you shall go in and uncover his feet, okay, and lay you down, and he will tell you what you shall do. And she said unto her, all that you say unto me I will do. And it probably took a lot of stamina or guts to do that. And she went down unto the floor, and did according to all that her mother-in-law had told her. 7. And when Boaz had eaten and drank, and his heart was merry, so he'd had a little drink, he went to lay down at the end of the heap of grain, where he was threshing. And she came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. So now it's symbolic for her to be at his feet. She's being submissive in this to do his will. And he said, but not, obviously she didn't do anything outside of that to provoke him. And he said, who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore your skirt over thy handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. And she's basically letting him know that she's willing to be his maidservant or concubine or whatever that he chooses, because he's a near kinsman to her husband, okay, as it was the custom in Israel. Verse 10, and he said, blessed be you of Yahuwah, my daughter. And she knows he recognized that she's of the Most High, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, insomuch as you hast followed not young men, which whether be poor or rich, she's not went after the ones that give her increase. And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to you all that you requirest. So he recognized what she was saying by laying at his feet, and that he was a near kinsman. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am your near kinsman. However, there is a kinsman nearer than I. So it had to go in succession. First of all, it would be the nearest brother to your husband that died, and then it would move down a succession according to tradition in Israel. Okay? And obviously we saw that there, it goes down through, it could go through all the brothers, but obviously it could even go further than that. Okay. Trying to get where I laid off here. Verse 13. Tarry this night, or stay here this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto you a part of a kinsman, a near kinsman, so in other words, take her as his own, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman, if he doesn't choose to, then I will do the part of the kinsman unto you. As Yahuwah liveth, lie down until the morning. Stay down. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. In other words, it was still dark enough you couldn't see each other. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came unto the floor. So he said, go on and leave before someone sees you here. Also he said, bring the veil or the cloak that thou hast upon you, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. what he had told her, okay, had promised her. And she said, these 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said to me, go not empty into your mother-in-law. So it's like a dowry, okay. Then said she, sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. So she said, Boaz is going to go right to the elders. They're going to finish this thing that's going to be decided today. Chapter 4. Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, ho, such one. In other words, come here. Turn aside and sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, sells a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise or to inform you, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people, if thou wilt redeem it, or buy it, or purchase it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it beside me. Besides you, it's thee. And I am after you. In other words, this is the guy that's in line, and I'm after him. Okay. Then said Boaz, what day you buyest the field of the land of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess. So there's more that goes along with the deal than just the plot of land. Also the Moabitess Ruth, which was the husband of the one that died. Okay, so Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, okay, on that land. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I endanger my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to yourself, for I cannot redeem it. In other words, he passed it over to him. Now this was the manner in the former time in Israel. So this was the custom. That's what manner and custom get used interchangeably. And it goes along with the law in the Torah. Okay, it's just further down the line so that the name wouldn't disappear or be lost in the areas that they received their inheritance of land in the nation of Israel, in this case in Yehuda, Bethlehem, Yehuda. Concerning redeeming, concerning changing or exchanging, for to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. So when we see, Johann or John the Baptist, Johann the Immerser, saying, I'm not worthy to take off his shoe, this is all about an inheritance. This is all about, the bride of our Mashiach. And Johann the Immerser wasn't in line for that inheritance. Yahushua, the Messiah, was. Okay? And this is a shadow or type pointing towards that. Verse 8, therefore the kinsman, doesn't say how close a kinsman, but it was down in line, it was still a near kinsman, said unto Boaz, buy it for you. So he drew off his shoe, okay, and Boaz said unto the elders and unto the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilon's and Mahon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren and from the gate of his place, you are witnesses this day. Just like when we take on our Mashiach's name, when we become part of the elect, when we decide, when we are grafted in, then we become all the same as part of that major body, just like here. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. Yahuwah make the woman that is come into your house like Rachel and like Leah. So there's what we know Rachel and Leah, we know, and he said, make them just like her, part of Israel, which two did build the house of Israel, as just like Ruth is going to be, and we're going to see that as we get towards the end of the book here, how she fits in the lineage that brings on Mashiach.
Amen.
Okay, and Yahuwah make the woman that is, I already read that, verse 12, and let your house or your family be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bore or gave birth to, unto Yehuda of the seed which Yahuwah shall give you of this young man. Okay, so Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went into her, Yahuwah gave her conception, and she bore a son. And the woman said unto Naomi, Blessed be Yahuwah, which have not left you this day without a kinsman or a husband. And this name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto you a restorer of your life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For you, daughter-in-law, which loveth you, which is better to you than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child, and laid in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name. So that's symbolic also that, Naomi would nurse this baby, okay, that would bring forth the Messiah. Okay, it says, and the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. And he is the father of Jesse, of the father of David. Verse 18. Now there are generations of Pharez. Pharez begot Hezron, and Hezron begot Ram, and Ram begot Amminadab, and Amminadab begot Nahshon, and Nahshon begot Salmon, and Salmon begot Boaz, and Boaz begot Obed, and Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. And we all know that our Messiah was known as Son of David. May Yahuwah be with you and bless you until we meet again. And if you have comments, concerns, questions, anything, even criticism, as long as it's biblical or scriptural, contact us at Philadelphia Assemblies, IES, at gmail.com. Shalom.